Okay, let's get into this. I want you to imagine you are walking down the street. It's a route you take, every single day.
Yeah.
Maybe you're commuting, maybe just grabbing a coffee. You pass the same hedge, the same bushes, the same trees. You see them, but you don't really see them. They're just background noise.
It's the rendering of the simulation, right? We just accept it as part of the scenery.
Exactly. But then, one day, something clicks. You stop, you look, and suddenly you aren't just seeing a bush. You are analyzing a biological system. You're thinking about root structures, soil composition. You're thinking about container viability versus planting in the ground.
Yeah.
You are essentially debugging the plant.
That is a very specific shift in perspective. It's moving from passive seeing to active observation. A fascinating psychological switch where the world stops being scenery and starts being data.
And that is exactly where we are going today. We are diving into the mind of someone who seems to live in that active state, well, almost constantly. We are looking at a source from someone who describes himself as an old software plumber.
And he documents his existence with the precision and, the volume of a server commit log.
It's incredible. So this is a really unique deep dive. We aren't looking at a bestseller or some huge academic paper. We're looking at a blog post.
Right. Specifically, a post from today, January 17, 2026, from a site called keynm.org.
The post is titled Notes on Gardening, Part 779. Perhaps I should explore Flame of the Woods, Ixora coccinea.
Part 779. I want that number to hang in the air for a second.
Oh, we are absolutely going to get into the numbers. The data on this site it's just wild. But let's start with the mission here.
Okay.
On the surface, if you just glance at it, we were talking about a plant, a red flower, a shrub. But what we are really exploring is the intersection of nature, technology, and just the sheer discipline of observation.
It's about how an expert in, like he says, free library and open source software applies that same systematic thinking to the organic chaos of a garden.
Right. It's how an engineer's brain debugs the natural world, seeing a leaf and thinking about the code behind it.
Yep.
So let's jump in. January 17, 2026. The topic is the Ixora coccinea, flame of the woods. Now, this isn't some rare orchid found deep in the Amazon. What's the discovery here?
Well, the author, Ang, he starts with this really refreshing confession. He admits that he sees this plant frequently in roadside landscaping.
It's everywhere.
It is everywhere, the definition of common. But he writes that it never occurred to me to write about the species until now.
I love that honesty. It's that blindness to the ordinary you were just talking about. We filter out the common stuff to save RAM in our brains.
Precisely. If you start to analyze every leaf you walked past, you'd never make it to the office. Your brain has to optimize. But the shift for him happens during a specific event. He mentions a recent field trip to a park.
A field trip. I like that phrasing. It implies he went there with the intent to learn, not just to, walk.
He was in observation mode. He wasn't just commuting. And that's when he spots a particularly lush patch of these shrubs growing in a cluster. And because he had changed his context from the roadside to the park, he was finally able to see the plant.
And he paints a pretty clear picture. He describes dense foliage and vibrant ball-shaped flower clusters. But what I find fascinating is that he doesn't stay in, poetic mode for very long. He doesn't write a poem about the red petals.
No, the software plumber brain kicks in almost immediately. He pivots straight to use cases. He notes that while they're typically used as hedges, which is why he ignored them, their structure makes them excellent candidates for container gardening.
I call this refactoring the plant.
Refactoring.
Yeah, in software, refactoring is taking existing code and restructuring it to be more efficient, but without changing its external behavior.
Right.
He's taking the hedge code, the plant as it exists in the wild, and optimizing it for a new environment. The pot.
That is a perfect analogy.
Right.
And he gets technical about that new environment right away. He says that even though he's in a tropical climate, which should be perfect for this plant, subtle shifts in the weather have a huge impact.
And then he points out a specific constraint.
He does. When you put a plant in a pot, the potting mix dictates how the plant responds to the elements.
Let's dig into that for a second. Why is the potting mix such a big deal for him?
Think of it like a server environment. In the ground, a plant has a buffer. It has infinite soil, essentially. But in a pot, that's a closed system.
Containerized environment.
Exactly. If the drainage is wrong, the roots rot. If nutrient protection is wrong, the plant starves. The potting mix is the operating system. If it's buggy, The application, the plant crashes.
So by moving it to a pot, he's actually increasing the difficulty level. He has to manage all the dependencies, water, soil, sun, much more strictly.
Yes. And because of this analysis, he decides he isn't just going to buy one on a whim. He says he's looking into collecting samples of hardy plants like these. He wants them specifically because they suit his personal gardening style.
It's so pragmatic. He's not buying it because it's trendy. He's acquiring it because it fits his system requirements. A hardy plant that can survive his specific container setup.
He compiles. That's what he's looking for. Will this plant compile in my garden?
So we have this very specific, very thoughtful observation about a flower. But to really get why this matters, we have to pull the camera back and look at the person writing this. Who is Ang? Who is this software plumber?
And this is where it gets really, really interesting. The context creates the story. The bio on his site describes it as a journal of an old software plumber night-long tinkering with Freelieber and open-source software, or FLOSS.
Floss. That's a specific ethos, isn't it? That's not just, I like free stuff.
No, it's a philosophy. It's about transparency, the freedom to study, modify, and distribute information, community contribution. He even lists his support for the Electronic Frontier Foundation, the Free Software Foundation, the Tor Project, Wikipedia.
So this is someone who believes information should be open, accessible, and documented.
Which totally explains the blog format. He is, in a way, open sourcing his life.
And the range of his source code is wild. I was scrolling through the projects list in the sidebar, and honestly, my jaw just dropped.
It is not what you'd expect.
It's like a Renaissance man who also knows how to configure a Linux kernel.
The range is just incredible.
Let me list a few of these just to give you a flavor. We have notes on fish keeping. Okay, fair enough. Then notes on Elixir Erlang, which is heavy-duty programming. Then notes on meditation, notes on dieting, and then just randomly, notes on guitar.
Don't forget notes on photography. It's wildly diverse.
It is. But do you see the pattern there? Is there a thread connecting guitar to code?
I do. It's the word notes. He treats everything as a system to be studied. Whether he's figuring out a guitar chord or a database query, the approach is identical. Observe, tinker, document.
It's not the ultimate guide to guitar, it's notes on guitar.
Exactly. That distinction is huge. The ultimate guide implies mastery. It implies, I know everything, listen to me. Notes on Gago implies a process. It's humble.
I am learning this right now.
Yes. It's a lab notebook, not a textbook. A journal of tinkering.
That's the perfect word. Tinkering. He is constantly poking the world to see what happens.
Okay, we have to talk about the sheer volume of this tinkering. Because when I clicked into the archives, I thought it was productive. I felt pretty good about myself today until I saw this.
The data of discipline. It is absolutely staggering.
So let's look at the sidebar under everything else. We're in January 2026, but look back at 2025.
730 posts.
730 posts in 1 year.
That is exactly 2 posts a day, every single day.
And 2024.
732 posts.
It's relentless. It's algorithmic.
It's like a cron job. You know, that scheduled task on a computer before a human life. He posts at specific intervals. Doesn't matter if it's Christmas or if he's sick. The log must be updated.
And it's not just filler. It's not, had a sandwich today, it was okay.
No.
Yeah.
I want to walk through the timeline leading up to today's post about the flame of the woods, because the oscillation between topics, the context switching, is just dizzying.
Okay, let's look at January 2026.
Right. So just before this gardening post, we had notes on Haskell programming, part 34.
And for anyone who doesn't know, Haskell is a very functional mathematical programming language. It is abstract. It is difficult. It requires deep logical focus.
So he's deep in the math of code. Then, boom, a post on fish keeping.
And before that?
Notes on dieting, part 113. And then right back to notes on Haskell programming, part 33.
And somewhere in that mix, he's talking about the blackbeard algae in his fish tank and discovering the parboiled rice.
It's this incredible weaving of the digital and the biological. 1 minute he's debugging a line of code, the next he's debugging algae in a fish tank.
And that's the key. To him, they're both systems. A fish tank has inputs and outputs, food, light, waste. If you get blackbeard algae, that's a bug. You have to patch the system.
Okay.
Maybe adjust the light duration. That's a configuration change. Maybe add a fish that eats it. That's installing a new dependency.
That is such a cool way to look at the world. It democratizes the problems, and algae bloom is just as interesting as a memory leak.
Exactly. And it's the same with the flame of the woods. He sees the plant, analyzes the variables, potting mix, weather, and decides if he can integrate this new module into his garden system.
And the titles, Tubifex worms, are first zebra cichlids. These are specific data points. He's not just looking at fish, he's logging specific interactions.
And he's doing this twice a day.
I keep coming back to that. 2 posts a day.
Well, that consistency is what creates the expertise. We talk about the 10,000-hour rule for mastery, but this is like the 10,000 notes rule. By forcing himself to write a note twice a day, he forces himself to observe something worthy of a note twice a day.
That's a really powerful point. If you know you have to write a post at 3 p.m., you start looking at the world differently. You look at that hedge and think, is there a story there, a lesson?
It turns the mundane into content. It turns a roadside landscaping plant into Note 779.
I also noticed the numbering on everything, part 74, part 779.
It emphasizes continuity. It's not a collection of one-off articles. It's a long-running thread, a continuous execution of a program called learning.
And he's seemingly unafraid to show the struggle. I saw notes on Haskell programming, part 23, a rocky start.
Your rocky start. Yeah, he documents the failures, too.
Which connects back to that disclaimer on the site. You know, opinions expressed here are my own. I cannot guarantee the accuracy.
It sounds legalistic, but in this context, it feels more like a scientific disclaimer. Like, this is my lab notebook. I might blow something up. Don't copy me unless you know what you're doing.
It adds to that whole personal experimentation vibe. He's not preaching, he's tinkering. And he's inviting you to watch.
It's very works on my machine.
So let's just go back to that synthesis of code in nature for a second. Because there was a parallel that really jumped out at me regarding dependencies.
Which one?
So in Haskell, he's talking about adding dependencies in part 21. That's about code libraries.
Okay.
In gardening, part 777, he's talking about propagating ferns.
Explain the connection you see there.
Well, adding a dependency in code is about bringing in outside code to help your program run. Propagating a fern is about taking a piece of an existing system to start a new one. It's all about resource management and growth, expanding the system.
That's a beautiful connection. And look at part 768, the European olive. He's exploring exotic libraries, essentially, importing a library from the Mediterranean to see if it compiles in his tropical environment.
Does it compile? That is exactly what he's doing with the Ixora coccinea. Will this plant compile in a pot on my balcony? Or will the compiler throw an error, which I guess looks like yellow leaves or root rot?
And he approaches it with the scientific method. He's looking into collecting samples. He's not just buying a plant, he's acquiring data.
It's really inspiring, actually, but it also makes me feel a little inadequate. I mean, I walked past 3 different types of trees today, and I couldn't name a single one.
But that's the beauty of it. It highlights the difference between consuming and creating. We all consume the world. We see the plants, we eat the rice, we use the software. But he creates a record of that consumption. He processes it.
And he shares it. He supports the EFF, the FSF. He puts this out on the open web. No paywall. Just dear interweb.
Dear interweb. I love that. It's such a classic old school blog salutation.
Yeah.
From a time when the internet was primarily about this kind of personal knowledge sharing.
Right. Before algorithms fed us content, people like Aang just wrote what they saw.
And the scale of it. Over 50 posts just in the first half of January 2026.
It's January 17th. That means he's actually ahead of schedule.
He is. He's banking buffers. That is a disciplined system administrator mindset applied to blogging. You don't want downtime. You need a buffer queue.
So this flame of the woods, a red flower, but really it's a symbol.
It's a symbol of attention.
The author admits he ignored it for years. How many things do we just ignore?
The plant didn't change. It has always been suitable for container gardening. It has always had that dense foliage. What changed was the observer.
The observer went on a field trip. He put himself in a new context, a park, and suddenly the old data, the roadside hedge, was reevaluated.
And that's the takeaway, really. You don't need to go to a new country to learn something. You just need to change your context. Go to a park. Look at the thing you normally ignore.
And maybe write it down.
Definitely write it down. Call it Note 1.
Note 1! That weird bush by the bus stop?
Exactly. What is it? Why is it there? Could it live in a pot?
It's funny, looking at the archive, even the mundane stuff sounds fascinating when it's part of this huge list. Notes on home improvement, notes on Python, it all feels equal.
That's the democratization of knowledge. To a curious mind, a Python-type error is just as interesting as a bloom on a zinnia. Both puzzles to be solved.
And he solves them publicly.
Which is the essence of floss. Free and open source software. You show your work. You show your bugs, your rocky starts. You don't hide the process.
I wonder what Note 1000 will be.
At this rate, We'll find out in about 4 months.
True. So let's wrap this up. We started with a roadside shrub, the Ixora coccinea. We learned it has ball-shaped flowers and hates bad potting mix.
We learned that even in the tropics, you have to watch the weather because the microclimate of a pot is different from the ground.
But mostly, we learned about the software plumber who watches the world. We saw how a disciplined mind can turn a daily routine into a massive archive of knowledge, from cichlids to Haskell.
We learned that the flame of the woods was always there, just waiting for someone with the right mindset to turn it into Note 779.
And that brings us to the end of this deep dive. But before we go, I want to leave you with a thought. A challenge, really.
Go for it.
Aang, our software plumber, posts twice a day, every day, about everything he sees. If you had to write a note right now, not a tweet, not a caption, but a note about something you walked past today, what would it be?
And more importantly, why haven't you started your archive yet?
Thanks for listening. Keep observing.
And keep documenting.